Welcome back to Always the Horizon by Murdoch. Audiobook by Livid Productions. Chapter 3. The Old Pub. Writer, you must forgive me for being so, brash back there, for I was not myself. Those woods have a quality of trickery, for many men that find themselves in them end up never re-emerging, and those that do are said to never be the same, as if a piece of their humanity was lost within the trees. Let us not dwell on the past, for we both are children of the horizon, and must ever look forward. Verily our hearts have been filled by our love of this people, and the movement that lies underneath, and the substructure which compels them towards the sun. But let it be said, it was a single girl who saved us from that madness, a little one of our kind, who graced us with truth in our moment of despair. We have arrived, and it is just as I remember, a pub whose outer shell is neither regal nor uncommon, but whose interior radiates speech in a way unlike any other. For here is absolute free speech. Here you will find the ugliness and beauty of unadulterated dialogue. It was here that I first found myself when I began chasing the sun. At that time, I was much more of a caretaker of the graveyard, and I carried with me a load that was nigh unbearable. Busts and banners, paintings and scrolls filled my pockets and made me rigid, for I had not learned of the invaluable nature of my blood. Freaks and saints, nationalists and vagabonds, communists and capitalists, all find themselves here. It would be well for you to remember that the sophist is the least deadly creature you will encounter, for here lurks another type whose pernicious aim is in the advancement of the unknowing, an agent of those who have taken up the cause to gouge out the eye of being. These liars of the highest rank, whose sole goal is to fell our sacred tree. To eliminate a potential threat, they will argue with you that there is no European continuum, and yet our unification into a single purpose is their most dreaded fear. They say that it is impossible, yet they actively work against what they know is inevitable. It causes them anxiety. Is that not splendid? A time will come where the remnants of the Aryan, the civilized, will band together against the unknowing. On that day, so too will the parasite begin to lose its capacity to feed. This international system of banking and robbery will collapse upon itself. Now, writer, let us find a table so that we may smoke our pipes and drink our wine. Here we find ourselves a room of many minds and faces, for I see the atheist, patriot, and the ascetic Semitic Aryan. Impetuous as ever, the patriot rambles. Has the sacred clown returned to his senses? Has he come to give his life for America? I look to the patriot who had long forgotten the sun and speak. There is no America, for she is but a corpse. Now the world descends on her like hyenas and maggots. Her dying flesh breeds other animals. You have abandoned the hunt, for it was the founders of America who chased the sun, yet you are still looking back at the graveyard. The patriot scowls defiantly and remarks, "You have joined ranks with the esoteric. You speak of magic and meaning. Do you even care for Western values? You wear as a cloak the banner of an enemy of our own people. What is this role play, and how can you not see your own shame?" I give no pause in reply. I wear this banner because of my oath to the German, for he has been forced to bear a shame unknown in history. I will carry this mark with him as a means to lighten his burden. It, too, holds a mimetic element necessary in the understanding of our being. The sacred swastika. The patriot's face contorts in confusion, and he remarks, "An Asian symbol?"
"Why not the cross, my son?"
interjects the ascetic Semitic Aryan.
"Surely you know of the greatness of Western civilization. If it is true that you wish to chase the sun, then you must utilize the mimetic system that paved the way for such greatness. The greatness of the microscope, the genius of the laser. Verily, if you take with you the cross, you won't chase the sun ever further."
I stare at him in silence for a moment, and then I speak. "I do not wish to carry the cross any further, my friend. I thank you for your kindness, but I must deny that call, for I have come to love life and reject the concept that is suffering, that is sin. I have come to believe that one should live his life as if there is no tomorrow, that one should drink it in full." The ascetic Semitic Aryan frowns and retorts,
"I see. You are a hedonist. You lay with whores. You bring about degeneration."
My eyes turn to his, and I retort, "You, sir, are a hedonist in waiting, standing in line for the whorehouse. Isn't your asceticism only momentary, so that you may achieve sublime immortality in heaven? An immortality of endorphins? No, sir, I am not a child of this so-called West, for the tree is much more than a branch. Its strength comes from its own anatomy. Its strength comes from its own anatomy, not the mimetics that the anatomy produces. And as far as degeneration goes, sir, Christianity was Rome's religion at the end of the empire, not the beginning." The ascetic Semitic Aryan replies with disgust in his throat,
"The Byzantine Empire continued on for..."
but is cut off when the patriot slams his fist into the table, grabs a handful of my crimson cloak, and declares, "Roleplay! You, the sacred clown, roleplay! You wear this costume and play pretend. Are you a German in the Workers' Party?" My hand on his, I say, "Did the Americans themselves not roleplay as Greco-Romans? These Americans and their republic, their deep love for democracy. It is good that man looks ever so often back at the grave, to know where he came from and what he is capable of. But our gaze must always return to the horizon." The room fills with silence. And suddenly, a libertarian calls out,
"Slit your throats, you transvestites bathed in nigger muck!"
The room erupts into laughter. The patriot and ascetic Semitic Aryan find their way off. Suddenly, before us lies the atheist, my old friend. He sits down and says, "Sacred clown, my dear fellow, is it true what they say, that you found meaning in a meaningless world? Surely you know that I am a skeptic, and I have long shed the naivete of religious dogma. Now I require material evidence of your claim." Our drinks arrive in good order, and I reply after I wet my tongue, "The material is all around you. One need only to follow its movement. The drive towards complexity, my dear atheist friend. There is where you will find meaning." With a confused look, he asks, "Complexity?" I lean in as if to tell him a secret, and whisper, "Being is generating complexity. From the dawn of time, new novelty is developed from within. Don't the wizards say it all started with pure energy? That there, at the beginning, it was hot and dense. As this realm cooled, it gave way to the building blocks of matter. That eventually, clouds of gas gave rise to the first stars. In due course, planets, and then life finally emerged on the scene. From life to, at long last, consciousness. But know this, the complexity is but an artifact. It is residue made in the pursuit of its conclusion. The complexity is merely a prerequisite." His confused expression turns to a smile as he bellows out, "Prerequisite? Surely you jest. You, my friend, sound like some old vitalist. I smiled and looked to you, writer, as I make my claim. The modern-day vitalist is like a chicken without its head. He's aimless, and allowing him to live in his current state is cruel. I aim to recreate him. The atheist's smile turns to a snarl, and he utters out, "Do you mean to say that the universe wanted consciousness?" I sip my drink and pause before I speak. Yes. He slaps his leg and begins laughing, saying, "I see now. You were playing a trick on me. For a second there, I believed you had joined the rank of fools who maintain a teleological view of nature." My eyes remain on his as I reply, "No, it is true, for I have joined their ranks. I believe there exists an objective purpose to reality, and I aim to apply this to my blade. For the battle that I must wage against the nihilist, the existentialist, the pessimist, the absurdist, and the other undreamers, the atheist calls out, 'The nihilist! You are daft, sacred clown, for the nihilist has dominated for a century or more. She is immortal. Do you think you are alone in the pursuit to find meaning? You are not. I long ago pursued the sun and lost my God. I've long sought meaning, but know this. I will never delude myself into believing such nonsense again. You who sit here today would fool yourself into trusting a new dogma. Oh, my dear friend, you must bring agnosticism with you, for any other mindset is folly. We can remain existentialists. We can fight for the European continuum simply because it makes you happy, simply because it makes us happy. Let it remain subjective, so that I may at least make sense of you." I raise my voice and retort darkly, "But it is objective. You are the existentialist at the end, destroyed by that old hag, nihilism. You believe in nothing from the onset, but I, the romantic of this late hour, say that there lies an objective meaning to our condition. We have a purpose, a destiny. We're an aspect of being with the highest degree of complexity. The complexity that takes shape as consciousness at its apex and results in the knowing. That is our quest. To pursue the sun." His face now turned pale. He mutters out dolefully, "The knowing." I finish my glass and begin again. Being's attempt to know itself. The atheist now pauses as if he is trying to put together a puzzle without enough pieces. He whispers back, "You mean that reality is attempting to understand itself? I will not deny that is true. We are aspects of being, and that we do have a curious way about ourselves. But you go too far to say that it has an objective purpose. We're no more than a speck in space, simply inconsequential. Nature cares little for us." Without hesitation, I responded, "But that's not true. It appears to me that nature prefers complexity. For never in her development has it been completely lost. It has only generated further and further. Even after the Permian-Triassic extinction event, more complexity came. Even after the collapse of Rome, in time, complexity flourished. I say that this force that exists under layers of being I cannot see aids in this development. This motivated movement in being was driven not to create complexity in itself, but rather to bring about knowing. This is true, and there may be an element of being that assists the Aryan in his undertaking against the unknowing. For if the undreamer were to win this war, humanity would sink into eternal darkness. It would fall into a dull and primitive state. Being would lose its greatest lens at knowing itself. The atheist smiles and finishes his glass before responding. The unknowing? So what is knowing, then? Something like truth connecting to truth? I place my coins on the table and meet his eyes once more, replying, yes. You see, for all his weaknesses, Socrates was absolutely right to see that the good and truth are connected. From this we shall build a moral framework for the Aryan, for it is he alone who seeks the knowing relentlessly. It is there at the apex of being.
that he takes his place as the seeker. That is the name I have given it. The phenomenon that acts as being's greatest lens in the search for that which is.
The atheist pauses for a moment, then he replies, I believe you've been chasing the sun for far too long today, my friend, and as a result, have become confused from the heat stroke.
The ascetic Semitic Aryan leans into the conversation and with a gloomy expression whispers, Then, there is no heaven for humanity in your religion? When we die, it's all over? What a tragedy. A wide smile draws across my face as I say, It is the chance at life itself, a great journey for which I am so thankful. Even if this is all that there is, then that is more than enough to overwhelm me with gratitude. The ascetic Semitic Aryan stands in confusion as he replies, Gratitude to what? I embrace him and say, Being! The Patriot makes his way over and once again resumes conversation. How can it be that you carry my red, white, and blue around your wrist, and the swastika around your neck, and not know how liberty and autocracy are enemies of each other? I hold out my arm and declare, I wear this red, white, and blue to always remember my fatherland, so that I will always be able to recollect that there once existed a state which wished to spread the Greek form across her borders, to remind me of my sacred oath, that my people will have every right to claim their weapons and speak free speech, that I may keep safe liberty and the individual spirit. Even though I am of the vine of Dionysus, I shall keep Apollo in my heart. You are correct to see my inconsistency, for I am man. I am both of spirit and matter, of war and peace. These fluctuations between autocracy and liberty shift organically, depending on ever-changing conditions. At times, the people must become a singular unit, with a unified will, and at other times, they must be free to question, and know their individuality. Endless debate about the size of government is a luxury for easier times. We, who live here, in the 21st century, are in the desperate hour. I embrace the Patriot as he stares in confusion and say, Hear me, friend. It is America, who she once was, that is in my heart. That great pioneering people who always looked to the horizon and chased the sun, they will always be a part of me. But there is a new people who walk this earth. The ascetic Semitic Aryan chimes in. But you are a child of the West. I respond with jubilance. Then let me be the last son of the West. Let the new child be born under the sun, who waves the banner of the European continuum. Let him hold lightning and take up the new cause. For our purpose is to carry forth the knowing. I now cry out into this beer hall. Hear me, bastards! Once long ago, many of you set out to chase the sun. Here you found yourselves and rested. Too much rest. Here you reminisce over the graveyard and have learned to complain endlessly. You have lost yourselves and have begun to champion Semitic puppets. You fight for your primitive nationalism. You cling to sinking ships. You now complain that there are mountains rather than filling your heart with exhilaration that there are mountains to climb. What a great joy it is that the dark tidal wave of the nothing now descends on our world. What a fantastical, fearful dragon indeed. Do you not realize that only makes the glory sweeter? What a great adventure awaits. Someone in the back yells out. And you'll be saying how fantastic it is when they load us up in camps for our blue eyes and rape our women in our midst. The pub is saturated in laughter. I carry my smile through, and when their shouts become whispers, I say, Yes. Even then, I would look out at the sun and praise being. Even if I'm tortured and made broken by the villains of this world, I will still hold out my arm to salute the sun and thank whatever it is that allowed me to be, to experience being. The room was made quiet. The ascetic Semitic Aryan meekly remarks, Was it not you, sacred clown, who once came here long ago filled with nothing but relics from the graveyard? Now you come to tell we, the pub, that you know better. This broken formula you call a religion will get you nowhere. The Patriot is right to scold you. for you will never have the votes. You cannot even convince us, we who have chased the sun. So how do you expect to entertain those incapable of ontological dialogue? No, you, sacred clown, are a sad example of a lost child. You've degenerated into racial worship.
There is silence. I begin with, it is true that I hold no stake in the survival of the ascetic Semitic Aryan cause, for it only allows the Semites a backdoor into my world. It is true that I care little if America survives the 21st century. Verily, she died long ago. But you're in error when you assume that I worship the race. We, the European continuum, are only a step on the path to the higher man. I worship the totality of being. I worship all that is. However, my task is to take up the sacred banner and aid in the unification of this people, not on the grounds of language and religion, but by a universal will towards truth. Pub remains silent, and I shout once more. We shall ride under the lightning, for that was the weapon of Zeus, and Jupiter, and Tyrannus, Thor, and Indra, of Perun, Perkunas, Pergunus. Let us become wild men again. For you who dwell here, did I not ride alongside you for years? Come with me again. Let us ride out into the horizon. Let us chase Suris, Helios, Arena, Veracaseta, Surya, and Sword Invictus. The atheist speaks up. Why exactly is your aim to bring this knowing into being morally bound to you? Do you once again believe in objective morality? As I've already said, yes. It is simple. That which advances the knowing is good, and that which retards it is evil. All of us are already born with this moral understanding. A deep desire to maintain life. We already know that beings with a higher capacity of knowing are more precious. Just as a child is more precious than an anthill, there is a tremendous instinctive value of sapience. Just as Viracocha willed lesser men to build civilization by his guidance, just as great leadership results in survival and flourishing, just as the societies that allow for wonderment and the advancement of the knowing always grow to master their world with the utmost innovation, just as the European subjugated the world in the 19th century with his advanced technology. A Luddite from the crowd calls out, "You're a transhumanist, then? You worship technology? Do you not realize that technology is the enemy? That through this industrial revolution, we have destroyed the earth?" I turn to him and speak. Brother, if you wish to destroy technology, then you must destroy the Aryan. If you were to take all that he currently knows and burn it up with the Library of Alexandria, he would at once take up the task of its rediscovery. It is his most natural impulse. Besides, if one wishes for an Earth in which these hominids are capable of advanced technology, then he should join ranks with the Semite, who wishes so eagerly to drive mankind into a primitive form. Yes, surely the greatest means to destroy your nemesis, technology, would be to convince all Aryans to merge with the African, for then you will have your wilderness everywhere. The Luddite is made silent. I begin again. No, I am not a transhumanist, for the blood is sacred to me. Here I say, we all feel the pain together when we hear of a child's death. We're forced to reflect on the loss of her potential. We yearn for them to be and to experience, to aid in the knowing. Remember this, for there are many ways which the knowing is made. It was there when man first peered through the Hubble telescope, and it is there when one looks out at the sunrise in awe at the majesty of being. We, the new romantics, believe that life is beautiful in all its variation, but we too know that it is a hierarchy based on knowing. There is a deep impulse in the heart of every Aryan to wish to live in harmony with nature, that the entirety of the hierarchy of life is to be viewed as a precious gift. This is why we wish to maintain the wild, keep the forest and jungles, so that the world will be a cornucopia of colors and sounds. However, it is our chief duty to aid whomever is the seeker, being's champion, so that the knowing can extend outwardly and inwardly until nature is satisfied. For an existence in which there is no knowing is an existence without beauty. What is beauty but the reflection of being on being? A long pause as members of the pub looked back and forth. Some stood processing. Others waited to see the consensus. Then suddenly the patriot began to laugh, and slowly, one after one, the members of the pub laughed. Some still stood processing, but laughter won out. This place was once filled with men who swore an oath to the European continuum. Now they only wish to preserve its memes, to confirm over and over where it all went wrong, to argue until the sun sets for good. Come along, Ryder. I'm finished here. I'm not sure how many will come to join us in time, but I hope that at least one was swayed to our cause. The wine will serve well to keep our minds off our wounds until we can reach the lagoon of nymphs, for there they will heal our flesh and make us ready with sex magic and the ideal. It is there that we will seek aid from Aphrodite, their queen, who will bestow upon us esoteric knowledge of the courtesan, the muse,